Imagine this for a moment. It's a freezing winter night in Minneapolis. Snow on the ground, blue and red lights cutting through the dark, people filming with their phones, federal agents in tactical gear moving through a residential street. And in the middle of all of it, a 37-year-old ICU nurse named Alex Pretti. No criminal record, no history of violence. An American citizen, a man whose job was literally to save lives. Minutes later, he's lying face down on the icy pavement, shot multiple times in the back, dead. And within hours, the U.S. government tells the nation he was a gunman. He threatened federal officers. They acted in self-defense. But here's the part that changes everything. Two witnesses, who were right there, just feet away, swore under oath in federal court that Alex Pretti never had a gun in his hands. Not when he approached the agents. Not when he was shoved. Not when he was pepper sprayed. Not when he was taken to the ground. They say he was holding a phone. They say he was trying to help a woman who had just been thrown to the pavement by federal agents. They say 4 or 5 officers were already on top of him, pinning him down when the shots were fired. So now the question isn't just what happened to Alex Pretti. The real question is, who's telling the truth? And what does this moment say about the direction America is heading? Because this isn't just one shooting. This is about power, about accountability, about immigration enforcement turning into something far darker, and about how easily a human life can be erased and then rewritten by official statements. Let's slow this down. Let's walk through exactly what happened that night. And let's listen to the people who were actually there. Alex Pretti wasn't some random person wandering into chaos. He was a protester. He had been attending demonstrations against aggressive ICE raids in Minneapolis. Just weeks earlier, another American citizen, Renee Good, a 37-year-old mother of 3, had been shot and killed by a federal immigration agent in the same city. That killing had already shaken Minneapolis. People were angry, scared, protesting in the streets. Alex Pretti was one of those people. Friends say he believed in standing up for others, in documenting what was happening, in making sure abuses of power didn't go unseen. That night, he was filming, not provoking, not threatening, filming. And then something happens in front of him. A federal agent shoves a woman. Another woman gets knocked to the ground, and Alex steps forward, not with a weapon, with his phone in one hand, his other hand raised, trying to block pepper spray, trying to help a woman get back up. This isn't speculation. This is what multiple videos show. This is what Nessa's describe. This is what a children's entertainer, yes, a woman who literally makes a living painting kids' faces at parties, said under oath. She was 5 feet away from Alex Pretti when he was shot. 5 feet. Close enough to see his hands. Close enough to hear his voice. Close enough to see what he was holding. And she said this: "I didn't see him with a gun. He approached them with a camera. He was just trying to help a woman get up. They threw him to the ground. 4 or 5 agents had him on the ground, and they just started shooting him. They shot him so many times. I don't know why they shot him. He was only helping." She said she read the DHS statement later, and she said it was wrong. Completely wrong. She said Alex never brandished a weapon. Not once. And then there's the second witness, a 29-year-old physician, watching from an apartment window overlooking the scene. A trained medical professional. Not a protester in the crowd. Not emotionally involved. He said he saw Alex yelling at agents. But he did not see Alex attack anyone. He did not see Alex hold a gun. He did not see Alex threaten anyone. Then the shots. And then this doctor does what doctors do. He runs outside. He tries to render aid. And what happens next is almost as disturbing as the shooting itself. He says federal agents initially blocked him from reaching Alex's body. Blocked a doctor, while Alex lay bleeding in the street. He says none of the agents were performing CPR. None were checking a pulse. None were trying to stop the bleeding. Instead, he says they appeared to be counting bullet wounds. Counting them. He finally forces his way through. He checks for a pulse. There is none. He sees at least 3 bullet wounds in Alex's back. 1 in the chest. Possibly 1 in the neck. This isn't a shootout. This isn't crossfire. This is a man being shot while restrained on the ground. Now let's compare that to what the government said. The Department of Homeland Security said Alex approached Border Patrol officers with a 9mm handgun. They said he violently resisted being disarmed. They said an agent feared for his life. They said medics were on the scene immediately. They said Alex was trying to inflict maximum damage. They said he was a gunman. President Donald Trump echoed that version. So did Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. So did a Border Patrol commander. They all described the same story. Armed suspect, violent resistance, self-defense. But then the videos came out, and the affidavits, and the timeline didn't match. The videos show Alex holding a phone. They show him stepping between agents and two women. They show him being pepper sprayed. They show him being wrestled to the ground. They show one agent removing a gun from somewhere near his body, then stepping away. Then another agent pointing a handgun at Alex's back. Then 4 shots in rapid succession. Then more shots. They show agents backing away from his body. They show confusion. They show panic. They show anything but a controlled self-defense situation. And now there's a federal judge involved. A U.S. district judge has ordered federal agencies to preserve all evidence. No deleting body cam footage. No altering reports. No destroying physical evidence. Because a civil rights lawsuit has already been filed. And suddenly, this isn't just a tragedy. It's a constitutional crisis. Because if witnesses are telling the truth, and if the videos are showing what they appear to show, then the official version of events collapses. And when that happens, the implications are massive. Let's talk about the bigger picture. This was the second killing by a federal immigration agent in Minneapolis in 1 month. The first was Renee Good, an American citizen, shot in her car, unarmed. Now Alex Pretti, also an American citizen, also unarmed, according to witnesses. So people in Minneapolis are asking a terrifying question. Who's next? That fear turned into rage. And that rage turned into protests. Hundreds of people flooded the streets. They built makeshift barricades. They chanted, "Ice out now." They held candlelight vigils. They carried signs saying, "Justice for Alex Pretti." Demonstrations spread to New York, to Washington, to Los Angeles. Sports games were canceled. Concerts were postponed. The Minnesota Timberwolves postponed an NBA game. Museums closed early. The city essentially shut down. Not because of snow, not because of a storm, because people were terrified and furious. And then the political fallout exploded. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz called the shooting sickening. He called ICE's actions a campaign of organized brutality. He demanded federal agents be pulled out of the state. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar called it murder. She called for the impeachment of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Senator Chris Van Hollen said Trump and his top officials had blood on their hands. Chuck Schumer threatened to block DHS funding. Civil rights groups demanded an independent investigation. And then the family spoke. Alex's parents, Michael and Susan Pretti, they said they were heartbroken and furious. They said the lies told about their son were disgusting. They said his last act was trying to protect a woman. They said, "Please get the truth out about our son. He was a good man." This isn't just about one death anymore. This is about whether federal law enforcement can kill American citizens and then rewrite the story and get away with it. This is about whether video evidence still matters. This is about whether sworn testimony still matters. This is about whether accountability still exists. Because here's the uncomfortable reality. Even if everything the witnesses say is true, even if every video confirms it, even if every forensic detail proves Alex Pretti was unarmed, history tells us something painful. It still might not change anything. Officers rarely face consequences. Federal agencies rarely admit wrongdoing. Political leaders rarely back down. And families rarely get justice. So what happens next? There will be investigations. There will be hearings. There will be more leaks. There will be more videos. There will be more lawsuits. There will be more protests. But the deeper question remains. How many more people have to die before this stops? How many more mistakes? How many more self-defense claims? How many more citizens shot on their own streets? Because if Alex Pretti can be killed while holding a phone, while trying to help someone, while surrounded by officers, then the line between law enforcement and lethal force has completely disappeared. And that should scare every single person watching this. Not because you're a protester, not because you're an immigrant, not because you hate the government, but because you're human. Because once the state can kill someone and control the story, no one is truly safe. Alex Pretti went out that night believing he was doing the right thing. He believed documenting abuse mattered. He believed helping someone mattered. He believed standing up mattered. He paid for that belief with his life. And now the country has a choice. Accept the official story or demand the truth. Because this moment, right here, is a line in the sand. And whichever side America chooses, will define what kind of country it really is. And here's where this story takes an even darker turn. Because while the nation was still trying to process the killing of Alex Pretti, another shocking incident came out of Minneapolis. ICE agents violently detained a 2-year-old child, a toddler, along with her father, in broad daylight, in the same city, just days after Alex was killed. Let that sink in. A 2-year-old girl was taken into federal custody during what officials called a targeted enforcement operation. According to local officials and the family's lawyer, ICE agents chased the father's vehicle through a neighborhood. They broke the car window. They pulled the father out. They took the child. No judicial warrant was shown. No clear explanation was given on the scene. The toddler was flown to Texas, separated from her mother, and only returned the next day after public outrage exploded. So now people aren't just asking what happened to Alex Pretti. They're asking, what exactly is ICE doing in Minneapolis? And who is stopping them? Because from the outside, it looks like something fundamental has broken. It looks like rules no longer apply. It looks like accountability no longer exists. And it looks like fear has become policy. Now let's go back to Alex for a moment, because there's a detail most people missed. Alex Pretti was licensed to carry a firearm. He legally owned a gun. That fact was quickly seized by officials and commentators. They said, see, he had a gun. He was dangerous. But here's the problem. Being licensed to carry a gun does not mean you were holding it. It does not mean you threatened anyone with it. It does not mean lethal force was justified. And more importantly, every piece of video evidence and every sworn witness statement says the same thing. The object in Alex's hand was a phone, not a gun. So now we're left with a chilling possibility that a legally carried firearm, if it was even on him, became a post hoc justification, that the story was built after the bullets were fired, that the narrative was constructed to protect the shooters. And if that's true, then this isn't a tragic mistake. It's a cover-up. And this is where the political stakes explode. Because the Trump administration is already under massive pressure. Approval ratings are sinking. International controversies are piling up. There's backlash over aggressive immigration rates. There's unrest over economic policy. There's tension inside the Republican Party itself. And now this. A viral video of federal agents shooting an unarmed American citizen in the back, on the ground, during a protest. This is not a PR problem. This is a legitimacy problem. That's why the response from Washington has been so aggressive. That's why officials immediately locked into one version of events. That's why they used words like gunman, armed suspect, and massacre. Because once you frame someone as a terrorist, everything that follows feels justified. Even execution-style gunfire. Even blocking a doctor from giving aid. Even lying to the public. And people can feel that something is off. That's why the protests aren't dying down. That's why vigils keep growing. That's why city after city is seeing demonstrations. This isn't just about immigration anymore. It's about state violence. It's about truth. It's about whether America still believes in due process. And then came the most haunting moment of all. Audio from one of the videos. As Alex is pinned down. As an agent points a gun at his back. A bystander screams, "What did you do?" Not after. Not later. In the moment. That scream captured something raw and undeniable. The human instinct that says, this isn't right. This isn't self-defense. This is wrong. And that single moment is now being replayed millions of times online. Not because it's sensational, but because it feels like a turning point. Like the moment people realize the official story doesn't match reality. And now the machine is in motion. Civil rights lawsuits, federal court filings, emergency injunctions, evidence preservation orders, independent autopsies, Freedom of Information Act requests, whistleblowers starting to talk. And that's when insiders quietly began leaking something else. That morale inside federal agencies is collapsing. That some officers are privately horrified by what happened. That some are afraid they'll be next. That some believe leadership is pushing them into increasingly reckless operations. Because the pressure from the top is intense. Arrest numbers, deportation numbers, results. And when results become the only metric, human lives stop matching. So where does this go from here? Best case scenario, the investigation proves Alex Pretti was unarmed. The officers are charged. The administration admits wrongdoing. Policies are changed. ICE is pulled out of Minneapolis. Independent oversight is established. Families get justice. Trust begins to heal. Worst case scenario, The investigation drags on for years. Evidence disappears. Officers are cleared. The official story quietly shifts. The media cycle moves on, and nothing changes. And here's the terrifying truth. History suggests the worst-case scenario is more likely. Because America has seen this movie before. Rodney King, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, and dozens of other names most people have already forgotten. Every time, there are videos. Every time, there are witnesses. Every time, there is outrage. Every time, there are promises of reform. And then, the system closes ranks and moves on. So now the real question isn't just what happened to Alex Pretti. The real question is, will this time be different? Because if it isn't, then what happened on that frozen street in Minneapolis is not an exception. It's the future. And the scariest part? Alex Pretti didn't have to die for this story to exist. He wasn't armed. He wasn't violent. He wasn't threatening anyone. He was documenting. He was helping. He was being a citizen. And that was enough to get him killed. So the next time you hear someone say, if you don't do anything wrong, you have nothing to fear, remember Alex Pretti. Remember the phone in his hand. Remember the bullets in his back. Remember the doctor being blocked from saving his life. Remember the government calling him a gunman. And ask yourself, if this can happen to him, what does that mean for the rest of us? Because this story isn't over. Not even close. More evidence is coming. More videos will surface. More witnesses will speak. More documents will leak. And when they do, we're going to find out whether America still has a justice system or just a narrative machine. And whatever the truth turns out to be, one thing is already certain. Alex Pretti's death has changed something. People are no longer just angry. They're awake. And once that happens, there's no going back.